All right, we've been talking about dangers of pride. We all continue to be tested by pride. It's amazing how we teach on things and then immediately we get tested on them. That's why I've learned over time to be real careful about what I go preaching on. If I'm not walking it, it'll sure come around and bite me in the rear end. But if there's pride down in there, then let's get it. Let's get down in there and get it. The reason I'm preaching on this is because God has been doing some different things in my life, and I've been paying attention more and observing more and sensing things more. And one of the things that I see going on more and more is I see spiritual leaders and pastors and different people that are getting too big for their britches, getting the big head, not paying attention to what's going on around them, and becoming fools. And I see them falling, and I know when they fall hard, and it's hard to make a comeback, isn't it? And so I've been thinking about talking about pride more from a proactive standpoint rather than a reactive. I'd rather be proactive and deal with something ahead of time and take care of it by taking ownership of it myself than for it to come back around and knock me off the high horse. We know in Luke that it says that he who humbles himself will be exalted. And basically it talks about that we can be humbled or be humbled. Are you with me? And I would much rather be humble, catch my pride, and take care of it ahead of time than wait till God knocks me off my high horse and then I have to be humbled and eat crow, and then I got my tail between my legs, and that's no fun, is it? So I've learned that a wise man pays attention to his weaknesses. I said in 1 Peter 5:8 that the devil prowls about like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour, and he's always looking for unresolved issues in our life, and two of the big ones are fear and pride. He loves to cower us down and try to intimidate us and growl at us and bark at us and try to get us to get up into our head and say, I'm a nobody, I'm poor little old me, and that's actually another form of pride too, but to run in fear. The other one is to get us caught up in pride, to make us think we've arrived, we got it all together, we don't need nobody, and then he takes us out that way. So two scriptures we've been talking about. Solomon talks about it in Proverbs 16:18. Solomon was one of the wisest men that ever lived, and obviously he probably learned about pride the hard way. And so he talks about being proactive, and he says to understand something, he said, pride goes before destruction. Or pride precedes or is a prelude to a relapse. How many are all for another relapse? I don't know about you, I may have another drunk in me, but I don't think I got another recovery in. Are you with me? And I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of going around the mountain, and I know one of the things that got me in my past is pride. So it says that one of the indicators of a relapse, a prelude, something that is that this pride will come up in you. Pride comes up when we forget where we came from. We get too big for our britches. I mean, no, it's important that we never forget where we came from, because we can go back there real fast. So it says, pride goes before destruction or relapse, and a haughty spirit before stumbling. A haughty spirit is a spirit or an attitude that is high-minded, lofty, arrogant, puffed up, conceited, self-righteous, self-absorbed. It's an attitude, and one of the reasons we have a DMI is a daily moral inventory, so we can learn to go through and look at our attitudes. And one of those attitudes is is a self-righteous spirit, isn't it? Which is basically a pride that will rise up in us, and we get all self-righteous, and we think we're above everybody, and we don't need nobody, and we get arrogant, we proud and lofty, and then it falls. So, and then in 1 Corinthians 10:12, he says, therefore, Paul talks about it too. He says, therefore let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. Let that person that thinks that he stands, or that person that thinks he's arrived, he doesn't need anybody, he doesn't have anything to learn, he doesn't need accountability. When that person gets to the point where they think they don't, they're an island unto themselves, then watch out, man, you're on the verge of falling. So pride, and I don't think any of us have arrived, have we? So, what is that thing in us? We talked about this last time. What is that thing in us that we all have? We all fight it. I mean, let's just get real. No one likes to be told what to do. We all like to be right. And it's so hard for us to say, I'm wrong, You're right and I'm wrong. But it's just reality. Some it's harder, more so than others, When you've been to the bottom like I have, sometimes it's, you just say, look, you ain't going to get no fight out of me. But we all have that pride that will rise up in us where, so what is that thing that makes us think that we don't need to be accountable? What is that thing that gets so easily offended when someone just tries to tell us something? What is that thing immediately when you feel like someone's challenging? What is that wall that comes up? What is that defense mechanism that automatically, you're not even listening to what they're saying, automatically you're trying to build a case to protect yourself so that you win? Does anybody have that problem or just me? Okay, we all got it, right? So what is all that? It's just pride. I've often said that when somebody's talking to me and there's just one little bit of reaction in me, if there's one little thing that's rising up in me, then there's an element of pride in my life. And so anytime you feel those different things coming up, you got something you need to deal with, and you better deal with it proactively or it's going to come up and can bite you. So pride is that self-exalting characteristic or attitude. It's that elevated opinion, that over-exaggeration or improper evaluation that makes you feel like you're superior to other people. That lofty, arrogant, puffed up, conceited, haughty, self-righteous, narcissistic behavior. How many of you know what a narcissist is? It's that rebellious, independent spirit that makes you want to rebel and makes you want to be like your own God. How many have ever been out there and realized you've been being your own God? How did that work for us? Didn't go so good, did it? God doesn't share His glory with anybody. So we want to take a look at this pride. We don't want to be a fool. We don't want to be caught by the devil. We don't want to go through that. So we've been talking about the dangers of pride, the seriousness of it. We talk about, let's learn to be proactive. Let's don't wait until we fall. When I start thinking I'm standing, I'm arrived, I got it, then that's an indication that I need to catch myself and I need to back up. When someone's confronting me and I can't receive correction and I take it as rejection and I feel those defense mechanisms coming up and all that, then there's pride. And I got a choice at that point. I can go ahead and allow that pride to do its work in me and be reactive and wait till it knocks me off, or I can be proactive. So I don't know about you, but like I say, I'm tired of going around the mountain. And in reality, we don't have anything to be proud about, do we? God hates pride. Except for the grace of God, there goes every one of us. You may not think, I could ever be a homosexual. But you never know. I used to think I'd never be a crackhead. And lo and behold, years later, here I'm smoking crack. I never thought I could be on the street begging. Well, I was on the street begging. I used to judge people for renting out their car. How in the world can you rent out your car to a crack deal? And here I ended up renting out my Corvette to a crack deal. Here it shows back up smoking and blowing head gaskets and all. you know. And so, none of us have anything to be proud about, amen? Amen. All right, tonight we're going to talk about the original sin. We're going to look at two passages here. Pride is the root of all sin. Pride is where sin originated. The first sin really was pride. It was rebellion and independence. A lot of people think that the first sin started with Adam and Eve when the devil showed up. But in reality, the original sin started way before that. The original sin started in heaven. Lucifer was a beautiful, beautiful archangel. Had it going on, but he failed to pay attention to what was going on around him. He forgot where he came from. He got too big for his britches. He got lofty, proud, arrogant, thought that he could overtake the throne of God. And next thing you know, he got booted out of heaven. Got the big head. Booted out of heaven. Went from heaven to being damned to hell, being in paradise. And then he took a third of the angels with him. So let's turn to Ezekiel 28, 11 through 19 tonight. It's a little hot in here, I apologize for that. Got a leak out there or something. Anyway, let's take a look at two of these passages. Ezekiel 28, 11 through 19. We're going to go straight to the source, back to the where it all started, back to the first sin. Again, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation over the king of Tyre, and say to him, Thus saith the Lord God. And then it says, You had the seal of perfection, full of wisdom, perfect in beauty. Who are we talking about there? We're talking about Lucifer. The actual Amplified says that you had the seal of perfection. You were the full measure and pattern of exactness, giving the finishing touch to all that constitutes completeness. You were full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. So let me tell you one thing about Lucifer. Lucifer was the seal, the seal of perfection. The word seal, it means to stamp something. It brings closure or finality to something. When you finish up a deal, the deal's sealed, it's done, it's perfect, it's complete, every I's been dotted, every T crossed, the contract's perfect, there's nothing you can choose or add to it, it's perfect. It's a perfect legal document that'll hold up in court. So when Lucifer was created, he was the seal of perfection. You couldn't be any more perfect. He was a perfect, complete, full. He was the perfect description of exactness. He was full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. How many would you like to be perfect in beauty? Can you imagine that? You could look at him and you could go from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet, turn him around, and you could not find one single flaw. Not one tooth crooked or one body part that's better than the other. I mean, just perfect in beauty. I mean, just an apple. When you think of beauty, you've seen the most beautiful sight to behold. He was created that way. You were in Eden, the garden of God. You were in paradise. Every precious stone was covered: the ruby, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the jasper, the lapis, the lazuli, I guess, the turquoise, the emerald, the gold, the workmanship of the settings and sockets was in you. On the day that you were created, you were prepared. You were the anointed cherubim. You were set apart. And I placed you there. God's saying that He chose him. He put him here. He created him. He put him in position. You were on the holy mountain. It don't get no higher than that, does it? You're in the throne room. I mean, there's no other place to go. There's no other higher promotion, no place to be. You walked in the midst of the stones of fire. You were blameless in your ways from the day you were created until unrighteousness was found in you. By the abundance of your trade, you were internally filled with violence, and you sinned. Therefore, I have cast you as profane from the mountain of God. I have destroyed you. You covering cherub from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was lifted up. It became proud because of your beauty. You got the big head. You got too big for your britches. You became lofty, proud, arrogant. You had an elevated, exalted opinion of yourself. And you corrupted your wisdom. How many know one of the things the devil loves to do is he loves to take everything that's good and corrupt it? Lucifer was given all this stuff, but he perverted it. He corrupted it. Everything that God does, the devil now even still, he wants to corrupt everything that's good. He wants to undermine it. He wants to tear it down and twist it. Even the Word of God, he constantly does that. He did it with Jesus in the wilderness, quoting Scripture and twisting them. You were corrupted. You corrupted your wisdom by reason of your splendor, and I cast you to the ground. So here you have God in heaven, the Trinity, and then basically you had Lucifer, then you had Gabriel and Michael. So Lucifer was the number 2 man. And then there were 2 quintillions of angels. I don't know who figured this out. How many know what a quintillion is? 2 quintillion is a 2 with 15 zeros after it. So here you got God, and he created Lucifer, and he was the most beautiful creature that ever existed. He emanated light. I mean, this light went out from him. He was covered with just the most beautiful stones. He actually had, I mean, I've read stories, I can't remember it all, but he had musical instruments wired out throughout him. And his job was to serve the Most High God. He was the number 1 man. He was the armor bearer. The number 1 guy, or the number 2 person next to God. He was the next in line, next to the Trinity. It was Lucifer, and then Michael and Gabriel were right there, and then 2 quintillions of angels. He was perfect. He was a seal of perfection, full of wisdom, perfect in beauty. He was in the Garden of Eden. He was on the holy mountain. He had it made. He don't get no better than that. But his heart became lifted up and got proud, and something happened in Lucifer's heart. And he got fired. Got cast out, and 1/3 of the angels fell. So that left 572,307,692,307,000 angels left. If you were to, I think this is the way this, if you were to add up every person from Adam and Eve up to this day, every person that's been ever created, and you were to take the angels, the 2/3 that didn't fall, and you divided them up by the number of people, not even counting Christians, just people, you would still have about 8 angels per person. If you were to open your eyes right now, you'd be amazed. If you're a born-again Christian, you've been given angels to take care of you. Kids have angels that have been assigned to them to watch over them. I've actually had, not physical visions of angels, I've never seen, but I've had visions. I've actually seen angels in a vision when I was going through a procedure at the hospital. The Lord showed me there was these angels that were watching over to make sure that surgery went right. I've seen them. I've seen them when I get ready to preach, I've seen them around me. The Lord's told me in the Spirit that He's actually given me 3 personal angels in the last year, specifically to help me carry out the new assignment that God's given me in my life. 3 angels, what I believe He told me. And so angels are, there to, and so Lucifer had a mate. But something happened. He got corrupted in his heart and he fell. Now go to Isaiah 14, verse 12. Gives us a little more insight. Can you imagine, just thinking about it, can you imagine Lucifer, what he had going on? And all because of pride. Lost it all before pride. I don't think he still knows exactly what hit him. But he says, how you have fallen from heaven, O star of the morning, O son of the dawn. You have been cut down to the earth. You have weakened the nations. But you said in your heart, circle that, in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of the assembly. Are you seeing any pattern already? I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High God. That takes some pretty strong courage there, doesn't it? Talk like that. Nevertheless, you were thrust down to Sheol, to the recesses of the pit. Those who see you will gaze at you. They will ponder over you, saying, is this the man who made the earth tremble? Who shook kingdoms? Who made the world like a wilderness and overthrew its cities? Who did not allow the prisoners to go? Here, the prophet Isaiah is talking about this, and they're referring to this guy. They're saying, man, this guy Lucifer used to be, is this the same guy? So here now Isaiah, he's talking about the fallen status of this Lucifer. And he's like saying, are you kidding me? This guy that used to be like that, now look at him. Are you the guy that everyone talked about, everyone raved about throughout the universe? Now part of the problem you see right here, who was Lucifer talking to right here? Was he talking to God saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this? At first glance, you might think he was talking to God, but let me tell you who Lucifer was talking to. He was talking to himself. He was talking, and the key to this thing is that he was saying these things in his heart. But you said in your heart, how many know it's... I think we're all human here. We can all, how many get upset with God sometimes, okay? Frustrated. Dag nabbit, Lord, and man, I'm doing all the right tithing, I'm doing this, I do this, and we all bark, right? We all bark. We talk. But most of the time, we don't really mean nothing, do we? I counsel and theophostically, and almost every single person I get any kind of depth of theophostic counseling in, they're all mad at God. And before I can go anywhere, I have to get them to own up to the fact that they got aught with God. They've got resentment, they got anger towards God. And I try to tell them, how can you journal and hear from God, and how can you love God with all your heart, soul, and mind and strength? How can you enjoy God when you're mad at Him? How can two people in a marriage go to bed at night and enjoy making love to each other when you're mad at each other? It's like, go sleep on the couch. And how can you have a good, healthy marriage, if you're mad at each other? So how can you have an intimate, personal relationship with God when we're mad at Him? But either way, we all say things. But, so we all talk about things that come out of our mouth. But then after a while, we begin to, the best way I can call it, we begin to murmur. I remember the children of Israel, and they were all barking at Moses and all that. Oh, take us back to Egypt. Oh, we did this. Oh, we did this. We did. But it became consistent, and they began to murmur. Murmuring is a little more serious. It's beginning to drop down into your heart. Now you're beginning to take those thoughts and those things, and you're beginning to form a type of judgment. You begin to say, yeah. The devil talks to you, and you say, yeah, I hear you. But then you're saying, like, yeah, you're right. Where is God? I've been doing this. I've been doing this. I've been doing it. And you're agreeing with the devil. So these Israelites, they begin to murmur. What they begin to do is they begin to hold resentment not towards Moses. In reality, it wasn't toward Moses. It was really towards God. They were murmuring against God. And how many know that didn't go too well for them? Matter of fact, the Lord said, Moses, you go over here, and everybody that wants to go with you's got a chance to go. But all you people that are murmuring, that are having this attitude going on in your heart, it ain't going to happen. Moses is the man. Moses is in charge. He represents me. And you can murmur, you can say all you want, but now you're beginning to make a judgment against Moses, my man. You're speaking against him. You're murmuring in your heart. And God said, stand on that side if you want. And the earth split up and swallowed, and a whole bunch of people went down that day, all because of murmuring. So we don't know how long this went on or what it was, but Lucifer, somewhere over time, he began to watch and observe, and it probably was thousands and thousands. Who knows how long it took. But somewhere in his heart, he began to have thoughts about, hey, why am I having to serve? I've been serving faithfully. I've been the armor bearer. I don't get to go into any of the closed meetings with the Trinity. I don't get to hang out with that. And all I can do is play music, and I'm beautiful. And he probably forgot, where he came from. Somewhere he began to probably mull over these things, and then he began to speak something in his heart. When you speak something in your heart, that means you swallow it. And you come into agreement, and you judge it, and you render a verdict, and you say, yes, this is what it was. So Satan had gotten way to, he began to not only just say these things, but he was actually saying these things. He actually thought that he had arrived or gotten to this place where he can overthrow God, and that he was actually going to make his throne, he was going to kick God off the throne, and then he was not going to just be equal with God, but he wanted to go above God. And he didn't say, well, I'm going to try it. I might do this thing. He said, no, I will. He was convinced. He thought he really could pull this thing off. And maybe to this day, he still feels like he might have pulled it off. I don't know the ramifications. But he began to say things in his heart. And he says, I will ascend to the heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars. I will sit on the mount of assembly. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High God. Can you imagine God sitting over here going like, are you kidding me? Boy, you forgot where you come from. Who's milking the cow here, me or you? And can you imagine the arrogance and the loftiness? But he actually arrived at this place where he was treating God with contempt. We're going to talk about this maybe next week. What contempt is that you're riding on the horse. You think you've arrived. You think you got it all. You don't need nobody. You're an island unto yourself. You become owner of God, and you're looking around and you're looking at others with contempt. That means you look down with them with despise. When you treat somebody with contempt, you're saying that you're worthless. You're a nobody. The Philistine giant looked at David and said, "Who are you, you little kid, coming at me?" And it says he disdained him. He treated him with contempt. He mocked him. He said, "Who are you, you little punk kid?" David turned around and says, "You better be careful. Who you think you are, atop the armies of the living God? I'm finna cut your head off and take you out." But he treated him with contempt. And this is what Satan was doing. So we got a problem here in heaven. And there's not going to be but one person running the show. And it's going to be God. And it's not going to be Lucifer. So we don't know how long this attitude kept on or how long it went in, but finally he got to the point where he said something in his heart. He had made a decision. He wasn't changing his mind, and he got voted off the island. And he fell from heaven, and he took a third of the angels with him, a whole bunch of them. And this is what they're doing running around the earth. So that same attitude, those fallen angels, that same Lucifer is the same spirit that's trying to take us out now. Matter of fact, if you look at the last of the 5 eyes, I will make myself like the Most High God. The word is Elion is the Hebrew word. It means the sovereign one who reigns, or the one who reigns sovereignly in heaven and earth, or it means ultimate or supreme ruler. What Satan says, I will make myself the sovereign one who reigns. Sovereign means you're all by yourself. What Satan was really saying is, I'm going to be the supreme ruler. He decided, that now I'm going to take God off the throne, and then now I'm going to be God. But not only that, is I want to make my position and higher, even higher. There was no higher place to go. You could not go any higher, and he really thought that he could go above God. You talk about being an island, being a figment of your own imagination. So Lucifer actually thought he could pull this thing off. So this is why God hates pride so much. Pride is the sin of the heart. When we get to the point where we quit talking and we start murmuring, and then we begin to say things in our heart, what we just did is we've made ourselves equal with God. Okay? When God is God and He's the judge, and I want to question, I want to challenge God. What it does, it takes God off the throne and makes us equal while I decide. So a judge, when we judge something, it means to make a decision. It means to render something between two opinions. It means you look at two different opinions, and then you give yourself the right to make a decision. A judge stands up there and he listens to both sides. He pulls it all together, and then he slams a gavel down and makes a decision, and he renders a verdict that is put in place. So this is basically what Lucifer did. He decided he wanted to question God, he wanted to challenge God. He put himself equal with God, and then he made a decision between two opinions, and then he made a judgment and a vow that says, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to do, and he made himself to be his own God. He thought he could actually pull that off. So it got Lucifer booted out of heaven and a third of the angels, and then it got Adam and Eve. Listen to what it says in Genesis chapter 3. I don't have that up there, but just listen real quick. The serpent, which was more crafty than the beast of the field, said to the woman, indeed, has God said, you shall not eat from the tree of life? The woman said to the serpent, from the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat, but from the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat from it or touch it, or you will die. That was God's decision. The serpent said to the woman, you surely will not die, for God knows that in the day that your eyes will be opened, that you will be like God, knowing good and evil. How many know rebellion recruits? Lucifer rebelled against God. He recruited 1/3 of the angels. They followed him. He came to the earth, and now, how many know now he went in and recruited Adam and Eve. He got Adam and Eve to question God, to judge God. God is God. He said this is the case. And what he appealed to? He appealed to their pride. He went after their sense of rebellion and their independence, and basically what he says is, God didn't really say that. God's holding out on you. He knows that the day you eat of him that you'll be just like him. You'll be promoted. You'll be just like him. He's holding out on you. Has God really said that? That's not what he meant. So what he got him to do is to rebel and to become independent. Isaiah says, all of us like sheep have gone astray. Each one of us has turned our own way. When Adam and Eve rebelled, every one of us rebelled. Every one of us, when Adam and Eve jumped the fence, every one of us went right behind them. And we've been running on our own. How many have ever been your own God before? Well, this is exactly what happens. This is why the sin of pride, it's rebellion, it's independence. When Samuel went to confront Saul, after he didn't destroy all the Amalekites, Samuel confronted Saul, and Saul's pride rose up. Oh, well, the people took the spoil. The people did this. And here he's the king, and he's getting confronted. He didn't like it. He didn't like to be, he's getting confronted with something that had a right to him. And now the pride's rising up in Saul. He's blowing up. He starts justifying, rationalizing, minimizing. That thing's going on with him. And Samuel's holding him right to the fire. He says, oh, I did this. And Samuel comes back and says, for rebellion is the sin of divination or witchcraft, and insubordinate is as iniquity as idolatry. What Samuel told Saul, what you did is you rebelled against God. You made yourself your own God. You ran on your own. You did what you wanted. You disregarded God. You looked at him with contempt and said, well, I want to do whatever I want to do. And that's just like the sin of witchcraft. Witchcraft is the other side of the fence. It's sorcery. It's working on the devil's side. When you practice witchcraft, you jump from being on God's side over to witchcraft. So he says when you rebel and you're independent, it's just like you're practicing witchcraft. I take it that serious. Insubordination, stubbornness, and hard-headedness as was iniquity of idolatry. He says when you're prideful, I consider you have just made an idol, and that you're worshiping him. We know in Exodus 23-5 that it says, you shall have no other gods before me. No idols, no nothing. That's the very first command, is you shall have no other gods before you. So when we rebel against God and we're independent, we commit one of the worst sins. We're in direct rebellion and defiance and disrespect towards God. We're treating him with contempt too. And God hates pride. It's not going to go well for us, is it? Proverbs 15:25 says, the Lord will tear down the house of the proud. Proverbs 6:16-17 says, there are 6 things which the Lord hates. How many of you like to know 6 things the Lord hates? It's right here in the Bible. There's 7 which are an abomination to him. I don't know where they come up with the 7th one. An abomination is something that is repulsive, something that God detests and despises. Abomination, God looks at that and says, man, when God says something's an abomination, he calls homosexuality an abomination to him. You know why that is? God created male and female. He created them just like you want. So when you decide now that you want to be a male and you're a female, or you're a male and you want to, or vice versa, God made you a certain way, and you're rebelling. You're saying, I don't want to be like that. I want to be a woman. You just shook your fist. Rebellion is just you shaking your fist at God, saying, I don't want you telling me what to do. I don't need you telling me what to do. And that's exactly what Lucifer did. It happened to him, and that's exactly what we do when we start shaking our fist and we get rebellious towards God. 7 things are about haughty eyes. The Amplified says, a proud look, the spirit that makes one overestimate himself and underestimate others. Proverbs 16:5 says, everyone who is proud in heart is an abomination, is disgusting and repulsive to God. Assuredly, he will not go unpunished. The Amplified says, everyone that is proud and arrogant in heart is disgusting, hateful, and exceedingly offensive to the Lord. Be assured, I pledge you, I will not let that person go away unpunished. Now Luke 18:14 says, for everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, brought low, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Now, I've said it before, and I just quote this over and over again. Either you be humble, be proactive, or you're going to be humble. If you don't want to be humble, then God's going to make you humble. So come easy, come hard, but God is not going to allow your pride to carry on. Pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before stumbling. So it's our choice. Now, in closing tonight, how many of you ever have a hard time being your own God? Let's just get honest. Let me just tell you, if you've been acting that way, you need to stop. Okay? Let he who stands take heed lest he fall. Some of you right now might be in the program. You say, well, I don't really need this program. I've got a few meals. I got a job now. I don't like being told what to do. And you're thinking about doing that. Well, let me remind you, God brought you here. God brought you to this program. When you walk out of Liberty Lodge, you're not walking out of Liberty Lodge. You're walking out on God. God brought you here. Amen. That's rebellion and that's witchcraft. That's defiance. That's direct attack on God. You're shaking. When you walk out that door and say, I don't need anybody, you're going out there, you're shaking your fist at God saying, I don't need you anymore. And you walk straight from the devil's, or from the Lord's territory right into the devil's playing field. And the devil's out there just pumping iron waiting for us, isn't he? So I don't know about you, but I'm tired of going around the mountain over and over again, and I don't want my pride to take me out. So next week we're going to talk about the antidote, okay? We're going to go somewhere. The antidote to pride next week. Amen? Amen.